Some betrayals don't arrive like hurricanes. They don't smash into your life with loud crashes and broken pieces. They slip in quietly, softly, almost like a whisper you barely notice. And by the time you do, it's too late. You're already drowning. I never imagined that a single summer afternoon would be the moment everything I believed in would start to unravel. The life I had carefully built, the promises I trusted, the marriage I thought was strong. All of it started to crumble under something I never saw coming. It didn't begin with some grand mistake. It started with something small. A glance that stayed a little too long. A touch that seemed innocent at first, but left a heat on my skin I couldn't shake. A conversation that felt harmless, but stirred something deep inside me that had been sleeping for far too long. And before I even realized what was happening, I was trapped in a place I couldn't escape. My heart racing, my breath catching, my mind spinning, wanting something I shouldn't have wanted, needing what I knew I couldn't have. Don't stop, I begged. Father and son, both of them. And after that, nothing was ever the same again. There are choices that leave fingerprints on the soul, choices made in moments of weakness, fueled by loneliness, craving, and desires that should have never existed. And once the line was crossed, there was no turning back. Subscribe to Crossing Lines so you don't miss our next emotional journey into the shadows of human relationships. My name is Emily. I'm 42 years old. And for most of my adult life, I've been fine. That's the best word I can find. Fine. Not happy, not miserable. Just floating somewhere in between, pretending it was enough. I've been married to Daniel for 17 years. On paper, he's the perfect husband. Stable, successful, respected. People always said I was lucky to have him. And for a long time, I tried to believe them. But Daniel has always been married to his work first. His law firm, his endless meetings, his clients' crises that somehow always took priority over everything else. Over me. Over us. Our home was big, beautiful even. 5 bedrooms, high ceilings, wide windows that let in so much light, and yet somehow it always felt cold. Empty. Like a museum we lived in rather than a home we shared. Conversations with Daniel were short, functional. Bills. Schedules. Polite smiles at dinner. The touch of his hand on mine that used to spark warmth had become routine, distant, almost mechanical. We shared a bed but hadn't truly shared intimacy in years. The worst part? I stopped expecting it. And then Jason came home. Jason, Daniel's son from his first marriage, had just graduated college. 22, full of energy and youth. He was polite, respectful, always eager to help. But underneath that respectful distance, there was something else. Something unspoken. The first few days, it was simple, casual conversations in the kitchen while Daniel stayed late at the office. Light teasing, playful glances, moments where our eyes met and lingered a beat too long. The air around him felt different. Charged. Like static before a storm. I caught myself noticing him more than I should. The way his shirts clung to his chest, the casual confidence in his walk, the softness in his voice when he asked how my day was. Harmless, I told myself. Just an older woman flattered by attention she hadn't felt in years. But deep down I knew. The tension between us was growing. Invisible threads slowly pulling tighter. And with every glance, every accidental touch, those threads wrapped tighter around my chest, making it harder to breathe. You see, I didn't come into this marriage out of some fairy tale love story. My childhood taught me early how to survive without expecting too much. My father was distant, my mother cold, always chasing perfection and appearances. Love, in our house, was measured in achievement, not affection. I learned to smile through the emptiness, to keep my needs hidden where they wouldn't bother anyone. When I met Daniel, I was in my late 20s, already exhausted from one too many heartbreaks. The last man I loved had shattered my trust, leaving me with pieces I didn't know how to put back together. Daniel wasn't passionate, but he was steady. Safe. He offered me the kind of life I thought I was supposed to want: security, comfort, respectability. I told myself that was enough. That passion was overrated. That stability would fill the spaces where tenderness should have been. But years of quiet dinners, lonely nights, and one-sided conversations had slowly chipped away at me. I became good at hiding the ache. I filled my days with routines, yoga, charity work, book clubs. Anything to distract me from how invisible I had become in my own home. And Jason saw me. He didn't mean to at first, I think. But slowly, we found each other in that empty house. Two people craving something neither of us dared to name. His relationship with Daniel had always been strained. Jason resented him for the divorce, for being emotionally distant, for never really being there when he was growing up. I could see it in his eyes when Daniel brushed him off during conversations or dismissed his ideas. Jason, like me, knew what it felt like to want more from Daniel and receive less. In some twisted way, that shared emptiness became our secret bond. We never spoke it aloud, but it sat between us like a living thing, breathing, growing. And yet, every time I felt that pull toward him, guilt tightened its grip. I was his stepmother. He was my husband's son. There were lines. Unspoken rules that should never be broken. But my heart didn't listen to rules. It listened to the warmth I felt when Jason laughed at my jokes, when his eyes lingered on mine like I was the only person in the room. The more I tried to fight it, the stronger it grew. The loneliness, the desire, the need to be seen, to be wanted, to feel alive again. And every day, the line between what was right and what was forbidden blurred a little more, until it was barely there at all. It was one of those perfect summer afternoons. The sun was warm but not unbearable, a soft breeze dancing through the tall trees surrounding our backyard. Daniel was away again on one of his business trips, as usual. The house, though large and beautiful, felt too quiet without him, but I had long grown used to that kind of silence. Jason suggested we sit by the pool to enjoy the sun. I agreed, grateful for the company, for his presence, for someone who actually seemed to see me. He brought out 2 glasses of iced tea, his easy smile making my chest tighten in a way I tried hard to ignore. As I stretched out on the lounge chair, he glanced at me and said softly, "You might want some sunscreen. You're starting to get a little pink." I smiled, half teasing, half inviting. "Would you mind?" He didn't hesitate. He took the bottle and knelt beside me. The moment his hands touched my shoulders, a jolt of electricity rushed through me. His fingers were gentle, but deliberate. Slow, careful strokes over my back and arms, his touch lingering just a second longer than necessary each time. I dared not look at him, but I felt his eyes tracing my skin. My breath quickened. My body betrayed me. Then our eyes met. And we both knew. In that single, unspoken moment, everything shifted. There was no going back to before. That was the first moment I felt something dangerous ignite inside me. For days after that afternoon, my mind wouldn't let me rest. I kept telling myself it was innocent, that I was reading too much into it, that Jason was just being kind, thoughtful, that any woman would have felt flattered by the attention of a younger man. But deep down, I knew those were lies I whispered to quiet the storm building inside me. The way his hands moved, the way his eyes lingered, it wasn't innocent. And neither were my feelings. I replayed that afternoon over and over in my mind. Every glance, every touch, every breath. At night, I would lie awake in bed while Daniel slept soundly beside me, my heart racing as I relived each second. Daniel, completely unaware, continued as always cold, distant, distracted. His brief phone calls from his trips felt more like obligations than conversations. There was no tenderness, no warmth in his voice. Even when he was home, his eyes were glued to his laptop, his mind always elsewhere. And with every moment Daniel pulled away, my hunger for something more grew stronger. The emotional vacuum inside me expanded, aching to be filled. Jason was the only one who made me feel visible, alive. I began whispering to myself late at night. No one would ever know. This doesn't have to mean anything. I'm still loyal. Nothing has happened. But even as I said those things, I felt the truth tightening around me. Something had already begun. As the days went on, Jason and I found ourselves talking more. At first, it was casual. Light, easy conversations in the evenings while Daniel worked late in his study. But soon, our talks grew longer, deeper. We shared stories, dreams, regrets, things I hadn't spoken aloud in years. Jason opened up about his childhood, how Daniel was always too busy to really be there, how he felt like a guest in his father's life. His voice would tremble slightly when he spoke of it, and I saw the same emptiness in him that I carried in myself. We started seeking each other out, creating small excuses to be alone. The emotional connection between us grew thicker, heavier, impossible to ignore. One evening, while we sat on the patio beneath the stars, our hands brushed against each other. Neither of us moved away. The contact was brief, but it was enough to send my pulse racing. The warmth of his skin against mine lingered long after the touch had passed. That night, our hands met, and I didn't pull away. Soon, the boundary between us blurred even more. Late at night, after Daniel had gone to bed, Jason and I started exchanging texts. At first, they were harmless, good-night messages, little jokes. But quickly, they shifted. The words became softer, warmer, more intimate. "You looked beautiful tonight," he texted once. My fingers hovered over my phone before I finally replied, "Thank you. You're sweet." I started dressing differently. Subtly. Slightly lower necklines, softer fabrics, a bit more makeup than usual. Nothing too obvious, but enough that I felt his eyes noticing, appreciating. Family dinners grew tense, charged with invisible energy. Daniel, still oblivious, carried on with his work talk while I caught Jason's glances across the table. Each look was a secret conversation neither of us dared to speak aloud. One evening, as I cleared the dishes and Jason helped, his hand brushed my lower back. A simple touch that sent a wave of heat through my entire body. He whispered, "You don't know what you're doing to me." I froze, breath caught in my chest, my mind screaming to run, to stop, but my body stayed rooted. That night, something unexpected happened, but it wasn't what I feared. The storm came a few days later. Literally. A sudden power outage hit during a heavy summer thunderstorm. The entire house went dark. I lit a few candles in the living room while Daniel was away once again on business. Jason sat close beside me, the flickering candlelight dancing in his eyes. The air was thick, heavy with everything we hadn't said. Finally, his voice broke the silence. "I can't pretend anymore," he whispered. "I know I shouldn't feel this way, but I do. I think about you constantly. I can't stop." My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. My hands trembled slightly, but I didn't move them away from him. "Jason," I barely whispered, my voice cracking under the weight of everything we were holding back. "I see how he treats you. You deserve so much more." My resolve weakened. The dam inside me broke. My head told me to stop, but my heart had already leapt. And then his lips found mine. Soft at first, hesitant, almost scared. But when I didn't pull away, the kiss deepened. My fingers found his face, pulling him closer as every rational thought dissolved into the heat between us. And yet, deep down, I knew the line was already crossed. The night unfolded like a scene I could never have imagined for myself, though the pieces leading up to it had been building for weeks. Daniel was away again, this time for an entire weekend. A business trip, a charity dinner, or something equally important that had once again taken him away from home and away from me. The house was unusually quiet, except for the soft hum of the rain tapping against the windows. The soft glow of a single lamp in the living room cast long shadows across the hardwood floor. The air felt thicker than usual, heavy, charged, like something was about to break. I heard Jason's footsteps before I saw him. His knock on my door was so gentle it barely made a sound. "Can I come in?" His voice was steady, but I could feel the hesitation beneath it. I opened the door. My heart pounded, my breath shallow. My robe was wrapped tightly around me, but even that felt fragile, like thin paper barely shielding the storm inside. He stepped closer, his eyes locked on mine. Neither of us spoke. The weight of what we both wanted filled the space between us. Every moment of restraint, every glance, every small touch from weeks before, it was all leading us here. Finally, he spoke, his voice breaking. "I can't keep pretending this isn't happening." His confession sliced through me. I should have stopped it right then, but my body had made its decision long before my mind caught up. He reached out, his hand brushing the side of my face with the tenderness I hadn't felt in years. My skin burned under his touch, my lips trembled as I leaned into his hand, silently inviting what we both knew was coming. When our lips met, it was electric, hesitant at first, but quickly surrendering to years of suppressed hunger. The kiss deepened, his arms pulling me closer, erasing every barrier that once existed between us. Clothes fell away effortlessly. His hands explored my body with desperation, as though trying to memorize every inch of me. I lost myself in him fully, completely, recklessly. The world outside that room no longer existed. His voice trembled as he whispered against my ear, breathless, "Don't stop," and I didn't. I couldn't. Inside my head, the words echoed louder than any warning. I begged. Father and son. Both of them. The final line was shattered. And there was no going back. The following morning was like waking up inside a nightmare I had created. I awoke before Jason. His arms still loosely draped around me, his breath soft and steady. For a moment, I allowed myself to enjoy the warmth, the comfort, the intimacy. But as the fog of the night faded, reality came crashing in. I slipped quietly from the bed, careful not to wake him. My robe felt heavier, almost suffocating as I wrapped it tightly around my trembling body. My reflection in the mirror was almost unrecognizable, my flushed cheeks, my swollen lips, physical evidence of what could never be undone. By the time Jason came downstairs, the distance between us had already returned, but this time it was laced with guilt. He barely made eye contact. His words were short, mechanical, as though we hadn't crossed the ultimate line only hours earlier. "Morning," he mumbled, his voice tight, his eyes darting anywhere but at me. The silence was unbearable. I forced myself to make coffee, pretending that somehow, if I just followed my routine, everything would magically reset. But inside, I was unraveling. Every small sound, the clink of the spoon, the beep of the coffee machine, felt amplified under the weight of my anxiety. When Daniel returned later that evening, I was no longer just battling guilt. I was battling paranoia. He greeted me with his usual casual warmth, but I could feel something different. His embrace lingered longer than normal. His eyes searched mine, pausing as if reading something written just beneath my skin. Was it my guilt? Was it something he sensed? Or was it all in my head? At dinner, Daniel spoke little. His glances shifted back and forth between Jason and me. Every moment of eye contact felt like an interrogation. Jason kept his head down, barely touching his plate, while I forced small talk, desperate to fill the heavy silences that surrounded us. My hands shook as I reached for my wine glass. Every nerve in my body screamed. Daniel's mood had shifted. Whether it was suspicion or simply coincidence, I couldn't tell. But one thing was certain, the noose around my secret had begun tightening. The days that followed became a blur of emotional freefall. Every waking moment was consumed by two warring voices inside me, one whispering sweet echoes of passion, the other screaming accusations I could no longer silence. Was I simply weak? I replayed every decision that led me here. Was it truly a moment of vulnerability? Or had I always carried this emptiness inside me, waiting for anyone to fill it. The need to be seen, to be wanted, had blinded me. But then another, darker thought invaded. Did he use me? Had Jason seen my weakness and fed into it? Or was he as lost and desperate as I was? He had confessed his feelings, but was that love or lust? Was I a mother figure he longed for? Or a forbidden thrill he couldn't resist? The ambiguity twisted my stomach. Have I now lost everything? Daniel's presence became unbearable. Every word he spoke, every glance he threw my way, they felt loaded with unspoken accusations. Whether he knew or simply sensed, I could no longer read him. My marriage, already fragile, now hung by a thread I had frayed myself. At night, when the house grew silent, I would sit alone in the dark, my hands shaking, my chest tight. The memory of Jason's touch still burned on my skin, yet it was accompanied by a suffocating shame that wouldn't release me. The worst part was knowing there was no undoing any of it. I had destroyed the one thing I swore to protect: my marriage, my integrity, myself. No matter how much I tried to rationalize, the truth was unrelenting. I had crossed a line that could never be erased. Have you or someone you know faced a similar crossroads? What would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your advice might help someone else walking this dangerous path. Subscribe to Crossing Lines for more gripping real-life stories that reveal the hidden sides of human relationships. Sometimes, it's not the loud betrayals that destroy us, it's the quiet ones. The ones born from years of neglect and silent longing. We tell ourselves it's harmless, that we're strong enough to resist, until one small moment spirals beyond our control. A single moment of weakness can shatter years of loyalty. Even the smallest crack can break the strongest bond. And some lines, once crossed, can never be erased.